On this episode of AV Week, the importance of JITC certification, training technology managers and end users, and raising up mentors in the AV industry. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 417, recorded Friday, August 16th, 2019. The end user.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Shure, sound extraordinary.
And by
Atlona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
And by Daylight, the leading producer of high-quality projection screens worldwide.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, my friend from Southern California. Her name is Corey Schaefer, and she is from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim, for having me.
Absolutely. Also with us, a first-timer, so Corey, be nice to him. His name is Chris Salazar-Mangrum from US AV Group. Welcome, sir.
Yeah. Thank you both. Very honored to be here with you.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Chris.
Absolutely. Real quickly before we get started, the folks who do our newsletter have done a really good job of redesigning it. So if you haven't signed up for that, you can do that on our website. So sign up for that if you would, please. Our top story today comes to us from Crestron. Crestron has announced their DM NVX line is the first AV over IP solution to receive JITC certifications. JITC stands for the Joint Interoperability Test Command. They are the group responsible for testing network appliances for use by government agencies, such as the Department of Defense. In checking the database, today Crestron is currently, they are right, currently the only AV over IP solution. There are other AV over category cable solutions, but nobody that fits at least AVNation's definition of AV over IP, which is you have to go through a network and all that jazz. Before we continue with the story, Crestron is an underwriter of AVNation. Chris, I'm actually going to start with you on this. As you're talking with dealers and your members, what do you guys see the benefits of a company getting JITC certification?
Yeah, so first, my first takeaway with that article was just wow. Really a first to market advantage, in that AV over IP technology space. So it's not just being compliant, but it's also being certified. I think that is a tremendous advantage, not only for the product, but from an integrator or end user, because cybersecurity is becoming such a trending topic with anything networked. Having the ability to install within a network a product offering that is hardened and tested, and then also certified, by a NIST standard, if you will, cybersecurity standard. It's a great value proposition that I think that integrators can drive to their end users, and the end users can feel comfortable with getting the product installed on the network.
I also think it's brilliant on the Crestron side because many large government projects are often specified, and so they can go in with a hard spec that says that they're certified, not just compliant, and really write the spec around that.
Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you, Chris. You said that you see it as a differentiator, as a advantage as dealers go in. Do you see it as an advantage even if they're not dealing with the government, the U.S. government?
I think so, because the end users are becoming more, aware of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities with networked equipment. As those IT departments are more aware of what's going on in the network, the easier it is to have those conversations when proposing a solution or an offering that has a certified technology component to it. So I think it may not necessarily ease the conversation, but at least it provides credibility to the conversation.
All right. We're going to put a link on this episode's page's website with a link to the database that you can check out, and you can knock yourself out and search for whoever you want. Corey, before we did this show, we did check for QSC. QSC currently does not have anything. But if somebody comes to you and says, you know what, Corey, I'm sold on QSys, I'm sold on this, that, and the other, I'd love to put it into this government installation, but we're currently not. What would be the process, or how would we go about getting a product from a manufacturer, and you're the manufacturer here, getting that ball rolling?
So we would take that to our team internal that oversees certifications, and we would look at what that process is, and we would also look at the overall project and then future projects. And if this becomes an inhibitor to help to QSC getting in projects, obviously it's something that we're going to not only look at but likely just get done. But if it's brought up for a particularly current job, these certifications tend to be a bit slow in the process. So it's probably something that we would have to pass on the current job, but definitely something to look at and be on the radar. So reading the article and looking at potential opportunities moving forward, I think that's definitely something I'm feeding internal with QSC.
Yeah, but the other side of that is government jobs take forever too. So,
True.
Yeah.
Right.
Chris, as we wrap up here, one of the things that Crestron made some hay out of the fact that they were the first and currently the only AV over IP. You said that's a brilliant, good first to market with that certification.
Yeah.
How soon before the next one do you see? And Corey's right. Government certifications do take quite a long time. We're not aware of, because you can't search that in a publicly available database. You can't search who's in the process. How long do you think before the next AV over IP solution it becomes JITC certified?
I think we'll see, in my opinion, more in the short term, because there is also, there's that first to market advantage. Arguably, there's some disadvantage as well, right? But whatever that in between is, it still raises the awareness of, hey, this is something that's important. It helps. It's really the trend and where we're going, I think, with these converged technologies. So I think there will be a lot more emphasis or a focus now as far as getting the certifications, or at least heading down that path to figure out really the landscape, because it's a complex landscape, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just now raising the awareness and getting that education, end users, manufacturers, integrators, partners, associations. It's going to be really a forefront conversation. And the next step in this is just going to be how to evolve and emerge.
All right, very good. Our next story actually has to do with a couple organizations that we have a lot of respect for, AQ-AV and the AV User Group. They have both announced a new partnership between the two. AQ-AV is the Association for Quality in Audiovisual. Mario Maltese and his group have brought education and commissioning to thousands of AV professionals over the years. The AV User Group has over 1,500 members globally, and they help bring the concerns of tech managers to the dealers and manufacturers. They've last year or two, they've started branching into the U.S. as well. I know they have a New York meeting, Silicon Valley meeting, and was it the Silicon Valley meeting, Corey, that you were at up in San Jose, or was it Southern California?
It was San Jose area, and actually I do the New York one as well. So They've been in New York, I want to say like 5 years, and then in Silicon Valley October will be 1 year.
October, yeah. Okay. So this new partnership actually brings AQ-AV's educational tracks to AV User Group members. Corey, I actually want to start with you on this. When it comes, you mentioned the fact that you're both the U.S. ones. Every year at ISE, there's a big AV User Group meeting. They're based out of the UK.
Yep.
Where do manufacturers fit into this whole getting in front of end users when it comes to bringing their offerings? Obviously, you guys don't sell to end users, and I'm not aware of any major manufacturer currently selling directly to end users. But you guys are QSC is, and a number of other manufacturers are making really good inroads. You're bringing your solutions and your arguments and your pitch straight to end users.
Right. So the end user audience is very critical to a company like QSC, and especially when you're talking corporate enterprise, because the big goal for companies like QSC is to get into their global standards. And once you're in the standard, then these end users typically have 3 to 5 room types that they're rolling out globally. And so we've been involved in the UK, the Hong Kong group. I mean, many of the AV User Group locations and being able to speak directly to them so we can really learn from them. What are they looking for from us? And who are they sourcing equipment from, and where are their projects at globally, so we can make sure that we are able to supply them products. So we're able to learn a lot from being a part of the AV users group. One of the number one topics that comes up from these users is training, because they often feel that once a project is installed and then they go into full deployment, that's really been a miss by maybe by us as manufacturers or the channel. So they want to have the training to know how to run systems and not have to rely on channel partners for that. So that is a common thing. I did a couple of sessions during InfoComm as well with end users on my panel, talking about best practices for global standards. And in creating standards is always the training aspect of it. So this is definitely a topic at that end user level, because they're part of the IT team, these AV guys in these large companies, but yet they're a small group that has to support all these deployments globally. So training is critical.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, if I may, because the voice of the end user, I think, as you're highlighting, is very relevant, important, especially as a manufacturer, even integrators, of course, because that's their client. But regardless, the point you're making about the training aspect, it's once you implement the technologies, then getting trained, and it's really driving that user adoption, right? So it's really the change management, user adoption piece that I've heard as well. I mean, with any project that you do, right, it's always that post-implementation support. So I just wanted to, just hearing that, it just raised a couple of ideas in my mind about a few things that we have talked about, at least internally with my group, and that user adoption post-implementation.
And Chris, at QSC, we do QSYS training. We have QSYS online and then QSYS level 2, which is a 2-day in-person. Then we have control training, QSYS control online, and then QSYS control in-room training. And we have seen over the last 3 years a big change in the audience of that. So it's typically was always the integrator, but now we have in every single training session that we do in person, there's always a really good mix of end users as well. And on the control side, they're looking at that user interface. And, many times when you deploy a project, you think you know what you want on the user interface, and then things change, or maybe logo changes, or there could be a variety of things that happen. And then to just want to change that they want to be able to manage that internally.
You mean it never goes as planned?
Yeah, never goes as planned.
Well, and it depends. And I'm talking as a former tech manager here, so you can give me a little bit of leeway here. You're going to run into a professor somewhere that says, well, what is that called? Why is that called that? Right. Yeah. And for years, document cameras, at least at the college that I worked at, were called Elmos. Now, it was a Kleenex, right? That was the Kleenex, because Elmo was at that time the primary manufacturer of the document cameras that we used. And so we had an entire nursing building we put up, gorgeous facility. And the integrator that did it, we subbed it out because it was a large deployment. They put DocCam, DOCCAM. And we had to go in and change the interface to Elmo. Now, there's no rhyme or reason for that, right? I doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to go through and change the DVD player to Sony or Panasonic or whatever, but it's what the end user wanted, right? Again, that's the thing with tech managers, right? And Corey, I want to bring you back on this. They are the end user as far as manufacturers are concerned and dealers are concerned, but they're not the end user, right? And that's right. A thing that you guys can help them understand how to talk to their customers.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, that was, when I did 2 sessions at InfoComm talking, they were end users on my panel, but they're not the end user, to your point. But they were talking about things that they've put in place to support the end user and how they're able to get budget approval for technology, how they create all their documentation for things, how they create user interfaces. I mean, and just really sharing best practices, because deployments, especially the global level or the enterprise global level, they're just really, really fast. So it used to be, you'd have typically a quarter to get a job done. We have customers that are turning jobs, wanting a job to be, here's our PO to completion in like 30 days.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes as manufacturers can't even deliver the product fast enough. Jobs are going fast.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final story here, guys. A little bit of sad news. The last of Shen, Milsom, and Wilkie has passed away. Industry veteran Hubert Wilkie was 98. Wilkie opened the first AV consultancy ever, what's widely seen as the first one, in the mid-1960s, eventually joining forces with Fred Shen and Dennis Milsom to form the famous AV consulting firm. Actually, Wilkie came out of retirement to join Shen and Milsom, which is even more fascinating to me. The fact that Shen and Milsom, they had an acoustic firm. They saw the need for multidisciplinary firm, and they talked Wilkie out of retirement. Wilkie was honored with the Infocom Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004. Reading all of these honors and thoughtful words this week, the one thing that kept standing out to me was mentor. He apparently would mentor anybody that would come across his path. I want to start with something here, and Chris, we'll start with you on this. What can we take away from this life of apparently a lot of mentorship and pouring into the next generation, and how can we kind of build our own futures and our own legacies around that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. What Mr. Wilkie had provided, at least the industry, it's something that I'm pretty passionate about as well. So I didn't know Mr. Wilkie directly or indirectly, but I did enjoy reading his life's work, his legacy. He seemed like a remarkable man. The impact he had on this industry, I think we're probably seeing it cross over to other industries as well. And what that shows is, really from a visionary's perspective, the possibilities are limitless. And I think from a mentor's perspective and having that next generation, the next in line coming up, it's more pertinent now to really engage the next generation, or at least start thinking about how are the visionaries going to begin passing the torch, and not only leaving their own legacy, but leaving at least a path for someone else to blaze that trail, right? The next person up. So I, like I said before, I enjoyed reading up on Mr. Wilkie's life work. And I think, his work has proved that, what he's established now and what's even happening, after his passing is just that there's more runway, there's still more to come. And I think he'll be pleasantly delighted as he passed the torch, if you will, and sees the next generation grow and evolve. So I think, again, without knowing him, just thanking him.
Yeah, Chris, I didn't know him either, and but in reading all of these things, I certainly knew the firm, Shen, Milsom, and Wilkie. But reading about his life, I think he was just really he just sounds like he really created what our industry is about, which when you talk to people about what do you love about the industry, so many people talk about the people in the industry and how amazing this industry is. Maybe he created the trail for us, right? So that we would just try to give back and give time to anyone that needs it. Because I can think of several people in this industry that do that, and this industry is just, for me anyway, and I know for others, has just been so amazingly kind and generous and giving. And in reading about his life, this man was that. And interesting also that he wasn't a technical geek, right? So this guy was more about that people side, and yet started the first, what was the first consulting firm. Really fascinating to read about him.
Well, let me ask you guys this, and Corey, I'll pick on you for a second. AVIXA has a number of groups and programs that connect people together, and SCA does as well. Yeah. You were heavily involved in the AVIXA Women's Council, which is a great resource for folks to get mentors. If you're not involved in one of those, if you're not a member of the women's group, you're not part of NSCA's Ignite. How do you get a mentor? How do you go about, tapping somebody on the shoulder and say, can you tell me what you think, or tell me how you got here?
So I really think it's up to you. And what I mean by that is, before these formal groups, throughout my whole career, I've always had a mentor. And how I've gotten one, probably my latest one was Dave Bright, who was CEO of Kramer US. And I didn't even know Dave, but I was just at an industry event and I was just really taken by him. And so shortly after that event, I called him up and asked if he would mentor me. And he was generous and said absolutely. And now he's retired and he's out of the industry and he's still doing it. And so, how do you get one? It's, you have to recognize that it doesn't matter what stage you are in your career, but a mentor is always helpful. And so being able to have the courage to go, hey, I think this is someone that I could learn from, and maybe just ask, because it would probably be a real honor for them. I mean, for Dave, he shared with me that one of the things that he wanted once he retired was to be able to do more, give back, and do things like that. I think it's, some people aren't comfortable in asking, so maybe they could tell some others, that they're looking for that, and then have that person ask. But I think that you have to recognize how important that role is to helping you get, advance or, improve in the industry. And I personally think we all need one, regardless of what phase you are in the industry. And another one is, I'm in CompTIA, which is the IT side. And they spend a lot of time talking about the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So a sponsor has the role of really helping you advance maybe within your company and helping you look with, for growth areas within your company, which is a little bit different than a role of a mentor.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of our industry is, and I think you pointed this out, Tim, about Mr. Wilkie, is, he was that people person, but it's about the people, but really they're very collaborative, and so it's almost as if you're getting mentorship without actually having a formalized mentoring plan. Learning a ton, either technical, strategic, soft skills, whatever it may be, just from people that have been in this industry for so long. And I've learned that too, because, being someone, if you will, an outsider to the industry, I've noticed compared to others, just how open and more collaborative the group of folks are, which is brilliant, right? That's right up my alley. But as far as, the groups and the associations, what they do, what they provide, we actually do what's called Next Gen, and it's teaching those soft skills is project management. It's different aspects of bringing up the next folks within an organization, but to I think now a higher level, we have to start thinking about within the industry, right? So it's how can they be the next, Mr. Wilkie?
Yeah, and Chris, I think that you're talking about the next gen, and I have to say that in the AVIXA women's mentoring groups that we do, we often spend a lot of time talking about, mentoring traditionally has been kind of positioned that it's usually somebody older, right? But we talk a lot about reverse mentoring, where there's so much to learn from people that are so much younger, just about how to do outreach differently, how to connect with people differently. I mean, there's just so much to learn, in all kinds of ways. It doesn't have to be somebody that's older who's been there, done that.
Yeah, it's that's brilliant. I like that concept of the reverse, if you will.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that'll be a good place to stop it. Thank you both so much. Ms. Corey Schaefer from QSC, thank you.
Thank you for having me. And if you want to learn more about QSC, you can go to qsc.com. If you want to find me, you'll find me on the Twitter, on LinkedIn, etc., as Corey Schaefer.
All right, very good. Chris Salazar-Mangum from USA Group, AV Group, thank you, sir.
Thank you both. As I mentioned before, it was an honor to be here. To find me on the World Wide Web, I guess personally, Twitter is @ChrisUSAV, LinkedIn Chris Salazar Mangrum. Facebook for the group is USAV Group, or you can visit our website at usavgroup.net.
All right, very good. Thank you both so much. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. You won't like it. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. While you're there, please check out our supporters section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AV Week and Resi Week. And in about 4 weeks' time, CEDIA 2019 from the beautiful city of Denver, Colorado, which is actually where Chris is right now. So we'll be heading out that way September 12th through the 14th. So all that and more at avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.